Welcome to the very first episode of Value Creation Nation. Listen, I am not your host, but I am joined today by Gene Tyndall and Scott Moon, co-founders and senior partners at eMate Consulting. My name is Lane Taylor, and I am helping Gene and Scott get this incredible show, this incredible concept off of the ground, and I am so excited to be joined with them today. This pilot episode is really about just going to be setting the stage for what is about to be on value creation. In today's business environment, companies are under more pressure than ever before to move faster, operate smoother, operate smarter, manage complexity, and create measurable value. Yet the studies are consistently show that many organizations still struggle to turn strategy into operational performance. And that's why this show exists. That's why you need to listen to this show. That's why you need to show up with your pen and your paper from the industry knowledge of these two. Value Creation Nation is built for executives, operators, and business leaders who are navigating transformation across the supply chain, operations, technology, risk, profitability, and enterprise growth. Throughout this series, they are going to break down real-world challenges organizations are facing, the operational gaps that slow performance, and the strategies leading companies are using to create measurable business value in an increasingly complex market. So in today's conversation, I get to introduce you to Gene and Scott. And they're going to introduce the core premise behind the series, talk about the biggest challenges that they're seeing across modern operating models, and discuss why execution has become one of the biggest differentiators in the business world today. Gene and Scott, this is your show. I am not the host of this, but welcome to your show, Value Creation Nation. It's good to have this finally in the pilot episode, gentlemen.
Thanks, Lane. Great to be here.
Well,
Yeah,
Scott,
thank you, Lane.
I'll introduce the people of who is Scott Moon and all about yourself.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. We find when we interact with many of our clients, they struggle to connect today's activities to the underlying principles that are driving their frustration. So we wanted to create this nation, if you will, which is really intended as a group and a conversation space where we can connect many of the activities that are happening to the underlying principles, the strategies, the tactics that will help unlock sort of the issues you're dealing with. I have over 30 years experience in a broad stroke of industries, retail, CPG, manufacturing, working for high-value clients like the Walt Disney Company and Victoria's Secret, and then in manufacturing companies like Kidde Fire and Security and United Technologies, working not only in line where I own a lot of the things we're going to talk about, where I had the responsibility to deliver on those tasks, but also from a consulting perspective, whether it be international and helping sort of carve out how a business competes internationally, or whether it be domestically and trying to optimize the operations that they're dealing with on a localized level. So Gene and I will bring our breadth of experience to the table and help put the things you're dealing with on a day in and day out basis in context to help you unlock how you find that value and how you can move forward and drive success.
Yeah, that's incredible. Scott, thank you. If you're watching this right now, whether it's on YouTube and or other platforms, but if you're listening, obviously that is good. But if you're watching it, there is Virginia Tech stuff everywhere behind Scott. And so, podcasts are fun because you can have loosey-goosey conversations. You can talk about the business, but just tell the people if they're watching this, your Virginia Tech ties. Like, what is that so people can see that?
I'm a grad of Virginia Tech. I have a son who's a grad of Virginia Tech. I have an industrial engineering and operations research degree. He has an aerospace degree, but he also played football. He was a long snapper at Virginia Tech. So many of the helmets you see behind me are ones that he actually wore. He was actually at Bristol on the field when Virginia Tech played Tennessee at Bristol. So that's, a lot of the football stuff comes from that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so people probably have no idea who I am either, but I'm a huge Tennessee fan. So Scott and I, that Bristol game was pretty cool. So if you're listening to this show right now, and if you go over on LinkedIn or you go anywhere, you either can comment "Go Vols" or "Go Hokies," because this pilot episode, now we have a Vol and a Hokie on here. So Scott, thanks for that. Thanks for the introduction. Now I get to pass it over to Gene. Gene, tell everyone about yourself, who you are, and why they should give you their ear.
Yeah, thanks, Lane. And to add to the sports analogy, went to the University of Maryland and was on the basketball team, so we can round out our sports knowledge that way. No, I'm happy to be here, and thanks, Lane and Scott, for arranging this. Just a brief background of almost 40 years. I'll tell people I got into logistics before it was supply chain, so it's come a long way. And I think that what Lane described and Scott is what we're going to be covering in this dialogue here is topics that they're not new. Ever since I've started working with companies in the 80s and 90s across all different industries, but largely consumer products and consumer electronics, they all struggled with the same issues we're going to be taking on, which is if you have a strategy and you're shooting for targets and goals, what's keeping you from reaching those as you planned? And in some cases, it's clear. Other cases, the root causes are deeper. So we've been happy to help the industry get through those root causes and improve the performance of what we refer to as the operating model. We'll have more to say about that, and really help the companies increase their performance. So look forward to sharing with you a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that we have working for a lot of different kind of companies.
Yeah, it's incredible. So what's cool is I don't know, Gene or Scott, maybe you all do know this, but I actually graduated from Tennessee and I was a logistics and now everything is supply chain. And so if I tell people I have a logistics background, they're like, "Oh, so you were before it became cool, but everything changed to supply chain." So yeah, I have a marketing and my diploma says marketing and logistics. So now all the cool things is supply chain. So that's the fun part.
So the nature of that evolution, Lane, now that you brought it up, the nature of the evolution is supply chain is the connection from raw materials all the way through to consumption by an end consumer. So it takes the concept of logistics was really around the movement and distribution of products, and it expands that concept to include procurement and all the other activities that have to go on related to moving from raw material to end product consumption. So supply chain broadens that view, and a lot of folks don't understand that broadening the view, and so therefore they think of it more narrowly. But if you look at the larger context, if you're in the supply chain space, there is no topic that, as a supply chain expert, that you should not be involved in. You should be involved in everything because supply chain's in the middle of everything.
That's good. Yeah, and I know you guys have talked about it as well. Gene, anything to add to that?
But just one more point to that. Logistics is basically, as Scott said, the movement and storage of products. And you can get some value out of that, of course, but the real value comes from supply chain. So we'll be discussing what supply chain includes and how you can find value in different aspects of that end-to-end program that Scott talked about. Good.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I mean, when you set the stage for the series to come, Value Creation Nation, and you gentlemen have the knowledge that you have, and you've been in this industry and you want to get that knowledge out, which is awesome. I love helping thought leaders and leaders in the space launch something like this because you really, well, you want to give them their knowledge. You want to educate. You want to make sure that people know what is out there. So for you, Scott, I can start with you. You know, you're sitting here and you're saying, okay, I'm going to create Value Creation Nation. What is it that you hope to solve? Like, what is it that you hope to say, you know what, I want someone to turn this show on and I want them to learn? What would that be?
Yeah, I think, you can tell by my gray hairs, I'm getting a little A's in the tooth. So the hope is that where I am in my career, it's about now trying to train the next generation, pass on the learnings. If you look at sort of my CV or my resume, you'll see that I meandered through organizations, and that was really an attempt to understand the business from front to back. So, I really challenged myself to not only live within a business, but really understand how it worked. And what we hope to do in Value Creation Nation is take that learning, that lifelong learning, and now put it in perspective of what's happening so that folks, because, things are happening all around us, right? The direct to consumer was a big shock to many businesses, and the pandemic put a lot of pressure on service level and how do I meet the customer's expectation of order to delivery. I've lived in the retail space. Gene and I know supply chain and logistics well. We know how warehousing distribution works, right? So we were able to go in and help unlock sort of what the expectations are and what needs to be done to make that happen, as an example, right? So what we're trying to do is help those who listen connect the issues they're dealing with solutions that they can go and put in place so that they get rid of the frustration and they get to solutioning. What we're going to, and you'll hear is a common theme as we go through all of the topics we discuss. Strategy is the essence of every problem you're going to solve, right? And why do we say that? We say that because the solution will be predicated on what it is you're trying to solve for. And therefore, everybody's solution will be different. What we'll try to talk about are the principles that need to be addressed, the things to think about, the ways, the different concepts, the impacts, right? And how you begin to digest and dissect what the problem is. It will be up to the listener to take that learning, then apply it to their environment to find what is right for them given their strategy.
That's good right there. People probably want to rewind a little bit, and you're already dropping some nuggets there. So, Gene, anything to add there?
Just one point, because I think that's exactly right. We both started out, let's say, working for senior people. Then we took different career moves, actually. Scott became an expert in a lot of things he does and adds value to companies. I got onto the management side, ended up being president of Ryder's supply chain. So we've got a lot of experience putting into place a lot of things I was recommending. At the same time, I've been on 4 boards. And watching firsthand companies struggle with these very issues we're going to be addressing. And I think your question was a good one. Why do we care about this? It's because we know it's at the heart of great company versus an average one. And competition is such these days, and things are changing so fast, as we'll get into. You've got to know what probably is going to work for you, or you're going to be stuck in where you are. And so we love helping companies get better, and that includes the people that run them. And we've set as advisors to them. We sat with them on boards. We sat as their right-hand advisors many times. So we know what's on their minds and how they spend their days. And I think that makes us different than a lot of other firms who just know a little bit about what they are looking for. We know why they're looking for things and what it is they need. So that's the value we're going to be adding to value creation.
Yeah, let me just add one thing to that, Lane, if you don't mind. The name, Value Creation Nation. Why the name? Supply chain experts need to be more than just supporting the business. They need to be creating value to the business. Nobody's in a better position to be able to see what needs to be accomplished across the organization and facilitate efficiency any better than the supply chain team. Supply chain interfaces with finance, they interface with accounting, they interface with sales, they interface with customers and delivery, they interface with their suppliers, right? The supply chain team is that single organization that is required to collaborate across all pyramids within the organization. And if they recognize their strategic opportunity to add value, they will be positioned differently than they are today. And they will be welcome into the board and sit within the C-suite, able to help craft strategy rather than just receiving strategy and executing to that strategy. So we want whoever's listening to recognize their strategic opportunity and always think about how can they complete their task by creating value for the business and not just complete their task by executing the business. And that's where the name Value Creation Nation came from.
Okay, so from an outsider perspective, I'm hearing there may be a little bit of disconnect. There may be a little bit of maybe on the supply chain side, they don't see it as a value to the organization. Maybe it's a different silo. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that how supply chain has been looked at? And then that's where you all come in and help create that value? Is that a fair question?
It's been largely a source of cost reduction. So most supply chain people and consultants look at supply chain as a cost. We look at it as a performance enhancer. And so you can grow revenue with it. You can raise your margins. You can do so many things with supply chain if you open your mind to what it can really do. And the leading companies prove that, but the rest of them struggle with getting it to the point where it's doing that because they keep it under the cost umbrella.
So often to your question, Lane, supply chain or logistics was viewed as a necessary evil. It's the back of the house that has to actually do the work to get the product to the customer that the sales organization or the retail organization did the heavy lifting to make happen, right? What we're saying is if the supply chain team recognizes that they can enable business expansion and they work ahead of the request and have capability available to provide a leverage point for the business, then they become a growth enabler rather than the growth drag, which it typically happens today, where the business wants to move forward, but the supply chain team says, well, I'm not ready for that. And then it takes a period of time for them to create the capability to enable what's been asked for. We're saying the supply chain guys should be ahead of that. They should be looking for creative relationships with their suppliers and collaborating so that they don't need to balloon inventory and they can get just-in-time inventory or ship direct from their suppliers straight to the customers, right? They should look for strategic opportunities to potentially bring sources onshore so they can reduce lead time and the working capital that needs to be invested in inventory based on lead times, right? They should look at how can I get better delivery to my customers? What does that network look like? What is the order to receipt to a customer? And how do you enable growth and additional revenue opportunities just by being closer to your customers and being able to deliver a service level comparable to what Amazon has done? Amazon's really raised the bar for the market. So, you got to compete with that. We in a bigger perspective, because a lot of people listening may say, well, that's a retail centric business. And we consult with a lot of manufacturers and CPG companies. And our advice to them is if you're expecting that the distribution market or the resale market is your path forward, you're missing what's happening and the genesis of the market. You need to be manufacturing and shipping direct. And so the topics that you've pushed off that you said, hey, I'm going to let my distributor or my reseller or my retailer deal with those issues. Hey, those are now issues that are sitting at the doorstep for every business that's out there. And so we're consulting with our clients to say, to expand your business, you have to listen to your customer, the voice of the customer. You have to be providing services and an experience that meets their needs. And don't step on the toes of your resellers and who your customers you're selling to, but listen to the end consumer and make sure that you're prepared to be able to step in and add those custom products or the additional services that your reseller or your customer is not providing to the consumer.
Incredible. Gene, anything to add there?
No, that's Scott put it right perfectly there. It's good.
Yeah.
I just used a couple terms, Lane, just for clarity. I use the term customer and consumer. Okay, so a lot of folks get confused on the use of those two terms. So I just thought it would be good since I use it to provide definition and context. Customer would be somebody who actually uses the product and consumes it. You or me, if we're going to buy a pair of tennis shoes, we're a customer. Or consumer, we're a consumer. If you have a retail store like Athlete's Foot or Payless Shoe Source, they're a customer because they're buying it and then they're going to resell it. Right? So the consumer is the person that consumes and uses. The customer is the person who will buy your products if you're a manufacturer and resell it to the end consumer.
I will say, Scott, I have not heard Athlete's Foot from that store in quite a while. It's been a long time since I've been into an Athlete's Foot.
They're still around.
They're still around. They're still around, but it's, I've always, from a marketing standpoint, the naming of that is just very interesting.
Yeah, so, I know.
Yeah.
Anything to add there, Gene?
One more point, Lane. I think another reason we wanted to do this dialogue and talk to people that are concerned about this question is that surveys continually are showing that CEOs and their C-suites only get about 70% of the strategies that they lay out. So that means that there's 30% or so more that is leaked in performance they don't get when they could. And so that's why we want to focus on execution and the operating model, because the CEO's job and his team is to lay out the right strategy. The rest of the company is there to implement and achieve those goals. And so that's the issue there. It's why aren't they getting what the strategy and what they've told their shareholders their plan is going to be? Why do they come back a year from now and say, sorry, we missed it, and here's why? So it's a matter of getting companies to achieve what they want to achieve. And that's better for everybody, better for the employees, the shareholders, and society if they're making a good product.
So leveraging on that a little bit, the biggest investment most organizations are making today is technological investment. A little bit of a teaser. A future discussion we're going to have is related to how do you get maximum value out of the dollars you're using to invest in technology. It's not about the technology you invest in. It's how you apply that technology to your strategy and how you change your operating culture and the way the business works to lever the technology you've invested in. And it's the latter part of what I just said is why they're not getting the value out of the technology, because what most folks do is try to force the technology they're buying to replicate their operation today. And you're not going to get the value out of it. You're asking a key to go unlock, a big door. Well, if the key doesn't fit, it's not going to work. So it's about matching not only the technology to the environment or the solution is trying to solve, but the business has to evolve to accept the changes that the technology brings and operate differently.
And one of the key metrics for the business is return on capital employed, and that includes technology too. And look what's going on with AI right now. So we'll have some comments about AI as we go as well, because that's a big issue in terms of investments and what return you're getting on them, if any.
What's interesting about the AI comment is I get to work alongside individuals and businesses and organizations in a lot of different niches. AI is everywhere.
Yes, yes.
Everywhere. And so when you all do the technology and you all speak about AI, I will listen to that one even more depthly, because it's kind of like how is even AI going to be in that segment? But it's literally everywhere right now. It's
Exactly.
So to jump on that point just a little bit, people use the term AI, but it's defined very differently based on whoever you're talking to. So part of, if you're going to, when we have that conversation, we're going to have to define what AI really is, what it's not, what it can solve, what it can't solve, and what's the right application, and what are the risks of relying too heavily on artificial technology. Because again, spoiler alert, right? Artificial technology, if it's not contained, will consume all information that's available in public space. So it's not like you turn off your brain. It's you allow the search to occur, but you got to leave your brain active to be able to dissect through what it's providing to you to determine with what it's coming back with makes sense or doesn't make sense. So it's kind of like putting in a demand forecasting system as an example. Folks that don't know how to forecast, drop in a demand forecasting system and they say, well, the black box told me to buy X amount. Well, the black box didn't expect you're going to turn off your brain. The black box is doing nothing but merely consuming the data you've given it, and it's kicking out a recommendation, assuming that the person that's looking at it has the knowledge and experience to be able to critique it and adjust it as required. AI is going to be the same thing. So folks are thinking it's the panacea, it's going to be the magic bullet that's going to solve all their problems. The concern is that it becomes another black box and people turn off their brains, and so therefore they start getting bad advice and they're not challenging it effectively to understand how it applies to their business.
It reminds me of the 10 years ago when people were putting in automation and systems and expecting improvements. All they were getting was the same old bad results faster. So we really have to Scott's point, what do we want to get from AI and how can we assure it's just not going to be even faster than that? So
that what you just said, Gene, is so fun. I'm probably going to steal that across multiple spectrums and multiple disciplines, because, you know, me being in the podcasting and the marketing world, it's kind of like, well, if you didn't have a good product to begin with and it took you 2 weeks to get there, AI may just speed you up to get a worse product and it's just getting there faster.
Exactly.
It's not a bad thing there. Well, gentlemen, so with the pilot episode, obviously it's like, hey, let's lay the groundwork. Who is this? What are we going to talk about? But obviously, like you gentlemen, you have a consulting business, eMate Consulting. I set it up in the very front. So talk a little bit about eMate Consulting for you all, what it is that you guys do, how you give it, how you do it, and just a glimpse so people understand that. And Scott or Gene, whatever you feel, Scott, you want to hop in there first?
eMate Consulting really takes what we're doing with Value Creation Nation and applies it at an individual company level. So we always take the perspective when we engage with our clients to look at who their customer is and work our way back up to solve the problems that their customers need to deal with, to unlock where their opportunities are to add value to their business. Once we know that, we can then challenge strategy to ensure that there's clarity within the organization of what it is they're trying to achieve, the time frame they're trying to achieve it, so that once we engage with the client on specific problems they have within the business, whether it be, putting in a new system or looking at a business process and redesigning it, whether it be looking at the organization and giving sort of a functional review and role and responsibility review, it could be a multitude of things. We help unlock the value of that business by then tackling whatever those issues are that need to be addressed. We do the analysis, we'll do the heavy lifting. We like to be there for implementation, so we're not just thought guys that kind of do the consulting thing where they give motherhood and apple pie, throw it over the fence, and say, "Okay, guys, we're out of here. You go do it. We're done." We want to be there. We want to hold our clients' hands. We want to deal with the issues our clients deal with and ensure that what we recommend actually gets put in play. And we like to, if we have and most of our clients we have long relationships with, we like to circle back and do sort of a fitness test. How's it working? What didn't work? What what worked, what can we tweak and work with you. But we're all about our clients' success, helping them add value. But most importantly, it's about adding value to their customer, adding value to their business, and adding value within each function within the business.
Yeah, and to reinforce that, one reason we came together, four of us started eMate. We were all working together at a mid-market firm, and we decided it's important to not only provide the right solutions, but make it to the point where it's going to be implemented and the change management that goes along with it. So we believe strongly, as Scott said, we want our solutions, which we know they're good, to be used, not just to be a bunch of fancy PowerPoints that you can show your friends. So we have the context in which the content is going to be fit. And that makes us different. We're not just engineers. We're not just human relations experts. We've got all those skills that make sure our solutions are implemented the right way and get the right results.
Let me just add to give a little color, right? So what does that manifest itself? We have a current client we're working with that's looking to put in a new ERP. Okay. In that new ERP, they're looking to stand up and basically populate the ERP with all their products. Instead of just using a random number for their products, they've determined that the associates within the business know the descriptions of products but don't know part numbers. So we had to come up with a structure of how do we create logical part numbers that basically, one, collect the attributes for the items, then create a process that allows the attributes to be put in whatever order they desire to create a part number, and then use that same construct of attributes to be able to be used to create a standard description. We've created the approach, the strategy. So we work with the client to create the strategy, the vision. We created the tool to actually capture all those attributes in a way in which the ERP cannot. We've created the structure of putting all that together and the flexibility to do whatever they want by hierarchy. We've actually put it in play and actually we're in the process of populating their ERP right now with the new products, with the new structure that we put in place. And we'll be there until that's done. At the same time, we've then levered that to say, okay, they've asked us to create a tool that creates a bill of materials because they actually do some manufacturing. So we're doing a similar process where we've created a dynamic process that they can create bills of material by selecting parts and giving them hierarchies that they can select from. So it's an example of we get immersed within a business, we understand their culture, we understand what they're trying to execute, we understand the capabilities of the team members that are in the business, and then we help them create tactical tools to get the job done and ensure that what we create gets implemented.
Very good.
Client and stories like that are incredible because I'm sitting here laughing. In a prior life, Scott and Gene, I worked in an organization. It was a very big organization, and in the part numbers and they made literally no sense whatsoever. And so if I was in that company still, I'd be like, hey, you guys need to work with Scott and Gene here. And so, but that story was fantastic. And this episode is, like I said, it's the pilot. It lays the groundwork a little bit. And so I don't want to tease anymore. You guys are a wealth of knowledge. You guys are going to do incredible with this. I can't wait to be on the back end and our team be able to help you guys with this. But before we wind down this show a little bit, I want to have fun for about 60 seconds. You guys good with that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yep.
Okay, so these are called rapid fire. Obviously, you guys are incredible business people, but let's talk about fun. Let's talk about, I'm going to ask you a single question, and you just got to give me a one-word response. How's that sound?
All right.
Sounds great.
We're going to start easy. How about this? We're going to tie it into a little bit of business. Scott, you can go first, and then Gene. Company you're most impressed with their supply chain, and you can't say Amazon.
Walmart.
Gene?
Procter & Gamble.
Good one. Okay. How about this? Favorite food?
Lasagna.
That favorite food? Wow. Filet mignon.
Nice choice. I'm going to dinner with you if I ever see you in person there. How about a movie? Favorite movie?
A little old school. The Eagle's Nest. It's an old school war movie.
Okay.
And I was a 5-year naval officer, so I like Top Gun.
Ooh, you like the first one or the second one?
Well, they're both good. The second one's better than I expected it to be because the first one was excellent, but the second one was fine. But the first was, I think, a little bit better.
Amen. Amen. Gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to sit in on this first pilot episode. I'm excited to be on the back end, and who knows, maybe I'll pop in other shows, especially maybe the technology one. Teach me all you need to know about the AI and then the supply chain side of things. And so if you're listening to this show right now, Value Creation Nation, if you have not subscribed on Apple, if you have not subscribed on Spotify, go hit that subscribe button. If you go over on YouTube as well, maybe you can like the post, maybe you could share it with someone. If you are listening to this and or watching this and you want to give it to a colleague that says, you know what, maybe you should listen to this, maybe you should subscribe to this, go do that right now. I know Scott and Gene would appreciate that. And until next time, gentlemen, have a good evening, have a good weekend, and I'm excited for the episodes to come.
Thanks,
Thank
Lane.
you, Lee. Thank you.